Hi everyone, I'm your host Zac Greenberg from Musicians for Health, co-founder. Today we are honored to have with us Tim Maloney and Eric Avner of the Carol Ann and Ralph V. Haile Foundation. Tim, could you tell us a little bit about the foundation and what you guys do?
Sure, happy to. We've been in business for 14 years. We average annual donations between 12 and 14 million, depending upon our asset size. Leslie and I represent Carol and Ralph in this endeavor. We fund in the areas of arts and culture, which I manage, community development, which Eric manages and he'll talk to. Education is run by my wife, Leslie, and we're in the human service business, primarily supporting emancipated foster youth, the elderly, food, housing, special needs of children. We learned early on, Zach, that it's important not to go down the aisle with somebody you don't intend to wed. So we're unlike a lot of our peer organizations, and as much as we don't have a lot of process, we're one of the few foundations in our market that will even give general operating funds in the arts world when it's so critical when they need it, especially now. Our work tends to be experimental. We toy a lot with audience development, as you well know. We love programs like Musicians for Health. And we focused on a lot of innovation-based gifting.
Amazing, and that's such a turbulent time right now for so much of what you do. Eric, could you talk a little bit about how you guys have grown into the COVID situation and the BLM and kind of America in 2020?
It's been interesting. I mean, it's really challenged. I think it's just challenged foundations generally on how they play a role in communities where they've typically been in this very much a leadership role, and it's become definitely a more participatory and a more sort of support role that we've found ourselves in, where we're doing a lot of listening and doing probably as much reacting or responding to, as opposed to being out front and leading on things. But I think generally we've been trying to figure out there's a balance between some just real critical needs of how to keep people fed and how to keep people in their homes and just those basic needs. And then there's this thinking about the future. And we have this, sometimes it's a luxury to be thinking about the future and to be thinking about what are those big ideas that can help the community move forward, that gets a little bit outside of, it just gets a little outside of the day-to-day, which is, I think, part of the role of philanthropy in general is to try to inspire bigger ideas and try to think about the future in a bigger picture. So we've morphed like everybody else. Everybody is working from home like everybody else, and everybody's become expert in digital meetings now. But I think it's been a learning curve for us, and both from just how to run something remotely to what's our role in a community like this, and what's our role with other foundations, and what's our role with other organizations. It's gotten us to be thinking about a lot of flexibility dealing with the organizations that we fund, that we would normally have funded very specific projects or programs. And now we've really been able to shift and be responsive to just the basic keep the lights on, keep the pilot light on type of grants to keep people, to keep some of these organizations alive. So it's definitely a unique time in society right now.
And how is
I will only add, Zach, that we put a lot of food on the table. We issued a lot of gift cards. We did employee support campaigns for a lot of our partners in the arts who had furloughed employees. And you got to keep it simple. These people need food on the table. They need Kroger cards. And we're watching some of our peers nationally and internationally doing some really bold giving. Some of the large dogs like MacArthur and are increasing their budgets by $1 billion. Yeah. Doris Duke is another foundation that's taken that lead, and it was a challenge to all their peers that this is a tsunami. This is not a rainy day, and we need to meet it with bold and brilliant ideas. And they've actually took the $1 billion and they issued bonds, which I think is also a brilliant move. So we're seeing a lot of creativity during this tough time.
And do you have any recommendations for anybody watching this of ways that they could help support you and the people that you guys support through? Is there a good way to donate directly to you guys or to any of the organizations you work with?
Well, we don't accept donations. We're not a receiving type of foundation, but food banks, shelters. I think the next wave we're going to see are evictions, and that could impact as many as 40 million Americans who suddenly have no place to go after being steadily employed for 7 or 8 years and are on the street. So we're not over this.
Yeah, and Ohio has been trying to figure out how it's going to deal with its unemployment now that the 600 is done, I know. So I'm sure it's very turbulent at the moment. And
I mean, we've actually, I mean, even like in Kentucky, they did this, and we were able to help start this in Cincinnati as well, just an emergency fund for individual artists as well, because I know that from a lot of the arts organizations are struggling, but the actual creative workforce within those organizations, the artists, the dancers, the performers, the musicians, they're laid off. I mean, if they're not performing and if they're not performing, they're probably not getting paid. So in Kentucky, they started this where we tried to do it here too, where it's just small grants to individual artists. I think there's this interesting balance right now between these like bold gestures and billions of dollars coming out, and then just like arguing over $600. And it's like there's this balance that we can play too, that we can think about those big numbers, but then sometimes it comes down to like, how do we just get that rent paid, or how do you get the food on the table? And this balance between these like micro scale, helping an individual, helping a community person by person, versus these like massive interventions, which are also going to be necessary and coordinated in some way.
Yeah, I know on our side, one of the other programs that we're running right now, as well as Brain Food, is our Seniors and Artists Outreach Program, which is providing connections for seniors who are isolated right now, but it's also on the other side providing small jobs for artists. And I think that it is really important, like you're saying right now, for organizations that have the means to be able to be creative about rethinking who they support and how they support, because it might not seem like a big deal for an artist to get $25 or $50 or something for doing a little gig like that. But in reality, speaking as an artist, a lot of times those are the gigs you do, and you just do a lot of them, and they start to add up. And then that's kind of a part of our sustainability. So I think that having those opportunities are so important.
Zac, there's one other thing. Like, I don't know if have you seen like what Americans for the Arts is doing with this? Basically, they have this essentially an imperative to get creative workers to work. And there's a position paper that's been put out that now has like 700 co-signers, arts organizations, foundations, individual artists. But basically, you're talking about like over 5 million creative workers in the country. And that some studies are saying that there's like 63% unemployment of those workers. And that, if there was a way to get creative workers back to work, to be, rebuilding or reimagining, sort of unifying or even healing communities again, there has to be a way to get a lot of this massive creative workforce back to work. And there's a series of like 15 or so different ideas that some are at a federal scale, but could be implemented at a local scale too, on initiatives on how to do that. I mean, I just keep thinking about if you had that many people, and I wish I knew the exact number for Cincinnati, but I know there's an artist survey and some census work that's been done in Cincinnati, but what a creative workforce could be doing to impact like infrastructure, or to be impacting community development or innovation or public health. There's these amazing talented people who need to be put to work for a recovery to happen. And it's an interesting piece of, if nothing more than just to sign on to that, to try to get those initiatives a little bit higher profile. So that's been something we've been watching too.
Yeah, it's so interesting watching hopefully the community shift into a little bit of a healthier way and start to understand how important creativity is, and how, like you're saying, that this huge workforce of artists who maybe don't have a business degree or a law degree or something more um, respected, for lack of a better word, in a lot of the business community and job
Mm-hmm.
community, but really having that creative mindset, be able to work on any problem. Because really, like, I use music to express my creativity, but it's really just an expression of the creativity, and being able to harness that um, as a company or in any job is so powerful.
Absolutely.
And I also saw, I forget what the number is exactly, but I saw some research about how much um, the arts force gives to our economy. And it's one of the largest numbers out of any industry in our country. And that's so important and overlooked a lot.
You're right.
I mean, there are so many issues facing us right now. I mean, to be thinking like how we can, I mean, we need to find answers wherever they are, and artists and musicians and creative workers are just like, there's just a font of information and ideas there that I think we need to be looking for and listening to more than we have been in the past.
Yeah. Being open-minded, some way to figure out how to um, take the good of the past and use that to move into this whole new world. Everything is shifting. Well, thank you, Tim and Eric. Thank you so much for being with us and for sharing your thoughts and having a little conversation. Um, and I look forward to when this is all over and we can go get a drink somewhere.
So do
Absolutely.
we. Thank you, Zac.
Thanks, Zac.
Thank you so much.